This is about the catastrophe you keep waiting for, the one you are sure will finally break you. And the quiet fact that you have already lived through it in 100 smaller shapes and you are still here. You carry a private forecast, somewhere out ahead of you. There is a day you believe will end everything, the call that changes the news, the loss you could not come back from, the mistake that finally exposes you for good. You do not say it out loud, but you plan around it. You brace for it in the background of every good day. You keep one hand on the rail, waiting for the floor to tilt, and so you live, a little tensed, a little braced, as if the real storm has simply not arrived yet. And notice what that bracing actually does to you. It does not protect you from anything at all. It only means you spend your good days braced hard for your bad ones. You live every ordinary Tuesday as if your phone were already ringing with the worst news of your life. You lose those calm days, not to the storm, but to your waiting for the storm. So ask yourself, when did you last feel fully safe? With no forecast at all running behind your eyes. You cannot quite remember, can you? That is exactly what it costs you, and you have been paying it. Quietly, in the background, for years. Let me tell you what you have wrong. The worst days of your life are not all ahead of you. Most of them are already behind you. You have already been certain you would not make it. You have already felt the ground go out from under your feet. You have already sat in the dark, doing the math on a life you were sure had just ended. And here you are, reading this, breathing, steady enough to worry about the next one. Seneca saw this clearly 2,000 years ago. In his letters to Lucilius, he wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Read that again. Not sometimes, more often. Your mind runs the disaster in advance, again and again. And it charges you the full price every time, for a thing that mostly never comes. He was not telling you to stop caring. He was telling you where most of your pain actually lives. It does not live in the storm. It lives in the forecast. So let us look at that forecast honestly and count what it has really predicted and what it has really cost. Start with the forecasts themselves. Think about how often you have been completely certain that the meeting meant the end, certain the silence meant they were leaving, certain the odd result was the worst word you know. Your mind does not offer these to you as maybes. It hands them over as facts. Already decided, already dated, already grieved. You feel the grief before there is anything to grieve, and then the day actually comes. The meeting is just a meeting. The silence was a dead battery. The result was nothing at all. So here is the honest question. How many of those forecasts ever truly made landfall? Sit with the real number for a second. If you counted every catastrophe your mind has fully committed to, and then counted the ones that actually arrived, the second number would be small, almost embarrassingly small. Your fear is a weather service that has been wrong about nearly every storm for years, and still reads out tomorrow in the same certain urgent voice. Now think about what you would do with a real forecaster like that. You would stop trusting them. You would change the channel. You would laugh at the confidence, but you keep believing this one, because it speaks in your own voice, from inside your own head. And anything that sounds like you starts to sound like the truth. It is not the truth. It is a nervous habit. Wearing the mask of caution, pretending that dread is the same thing as being prepared. So test it this week, plainly, on paper, for 7 days. Write down every disaster your mind fully predicts. 1 line each is enough. Then beside it, once the day is done, write what actually happened. You are not arguing with the fear while it screams. You are just quietly keeping the receipts. And by the end of the week, you will be holding proof, in your own handwriting, that the voice warning you about your future is the least reliable narrator you have ever met. Now turn around and look the other way. Not out at the storms ahead, but back at the ones already behind you, because you have a strange blindness here. And it works against you every single day. You treat yourself as untested. You talk as if the hard thing has not come yet. As if you're still waiting to find out whether you could take a real blow, but you already know the answer. You have already been hit hard, more than once. Think back to the worst week you have ever lived through. Not the imagined one, the real one. The week you were sure you would not get up again. The season where every morning felt like waking underwater and having to swim up just to start the day. Back then, did you know how it would end? You did not. You could not see one step ahead. Every instinct told you this was the storm you would not clear. And yet, somehow, here you are, on the far side of it, reading these words with that whole thing behind you. That is the part you keep quietly deleting. You survived it. Not gracefully, maybe, not without cost and not without scars, but you came through a thing you were completely convinced would finish you off. So what does that make you? It does not make you someone who has never faced weather. It makes you someone who has faced dozens of storms and then filed each one away and gone straight back to believing you are fragile and new. Epictetus taught that it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And look closely at your standing judgment of yourself. It says, untested, unready, one bad day away from collapse. Now look at the actual evidence of your life. The evidence says the exact opposite. The evidence is a long coastline of storms that you have already outlasted, one after another after another. So do this tonight before you sleep. Name 3 disasters you were certain would end you. That simply did not say them out loud if you can. The ending you thought you would never recover from. The loss that took the floor with it. The night you were sure the fear would still be sitting on your chest by morning. It lifted. You are the living proof that it lifted. Let that be the first fact your mind meets in the dark, instead of the last fear it reaches for. There is a specific move your mind makes, and it is worth catching in the act. It pre-lives the catastrophe before anything at all has happened. It plays the whole scene in full color, the bad news, the face of the person telling you, the silence in the room right after, the long walk home through it. Your mind builds the entire disaster in advance, in high detail, and then it makes you stand inside it and feel every degree of the cold. So ask yourself what that actually costs you. If the thing never comes, then you have suffered it for nothing, completely for free. And if the thing does one day come, then you will have suffered it twice, once in the long rehearsal and once in the real event. Who told you that you had to pay for the storm before it has even formed on the horizon? Who decided you should stand out in rain? That is not falling. On a day that is not raining, this is exactly where Seneca cuts closest. The imagined version he saw is almost always worse than the real one, because reality has limits, and dread has none. A real storm has an edge. It has a beginning, a middle, an end, a size you can eventually measure. The imagined storm has no edges anywhere. It fills the entire sky of your mind, because you keep feeding it, and it never once has to prove that it is even real. So here is the turn you can use the moment it starts. When you catch your mind beginning the rehearsal, stop it with a single question. Is this happening right now? Or am I renting it? Renting it. That is the exact word for what you are doing. You are paying today, in real, felt distress, to move early into a future that may never even be built. And once you notice you are renting, do the smallest true thing in front of you. Look down at your hands. Feel the chair actually holding your weight. Name one thing in this room that is genuinely boringly fine right now. You are not denying that hard things exist. You are only refusing to move in early and pay rent month after month on a house that the weather may never even reach. Let us talk about evidence and the strange, uneven way you handle your own. When it comes to danger, you will accept the flimsiest scrap of proof, a tone of voice, a reply that came an hour late, a look you probably misread across a room. That is more than enough for your mind to declare an incoming storm. But when it comes to your own strength, you suddenly demand impossible proof, and then you ignore it completely when it arrives. Think about what actually happens right after you survive something hard. Do you keep the record of it? Almost never. You get through the brutal month. You finally exhale. And you file the entire thing under one small word. Lucky. Just lucky. Somehow you scrape through, this one time. And so when the next fear arrives, it gets to start again from zero. As if you had never once stood out in the weather. As if all those earlier storms belonged to a stronger stranger and not to you. This is the real cost of throwing away your receipts. Every new fear gets to feel like your very first one. You meet each fresh storm as a total beginner. When you are in plain fact a veteran of 100 of them, and a beginner panics for a good reason. A beginner has no data, no history, nothing to stand on. But you have mountains of data. You have a lifetime of it. You have simply refused again and again to actually read it back. Marcus Aurelius kept a private notebook. For very close to this reason. He wrote things down to remind himself, in the next dark hour, of what he already understood perfectly well in the calm one. You can borrow that exact habit. Keep a survival ledger of your own. A page, a note, a running list on your phone. Every single time you come through something you feared. Add one honest line to it. This happened to me, and I am still here. It will feel almost too small and simple to matter. Believe me, it is not small, because on the day the next fear leans in close and tells you that you cannot possibly cope, you will have a page that answers it back. In your own steady handwriting. Look, the page will say, here are the last 20 times you were completely sure you could not, and did anyway. Here is something the rehearsal will never once tell you. The real thing, when it comes, is almost always smaller than the imagined one. When a feared event finally does arrive. And sometimes, yes, it does. People keep reporting the same strange discovery afterward. It was heavy. It was genuinely hard. But it was not the bottomless, edgeless thing they had spent months building in the dark. It had a floor under it. It had a shape. It could be carried. 1 hour, and then the next hour, at a time. So why does the imagined version always run so much bigger? Because in the rehearsal, you never actually get to act. You only ever get to receive. You picture the blow landing on you. But you never once picture your own hands moving afterward. You cast yourself in the disaster as a frozen figure. Flattened, done, unable to move. And never as the person who makes the first phone call, fills in the first form, takes the first real step out into the aftermath. Have you noticed that? You are always the victim in the scene. And never ever the one who copes. That missing half is everything. And you can put it back. The next time the dread gets loud, do not try to wrestle it down directly. Instead, ask it a working question. If this actually did happen, what would I do on the very first day? Not how would I feel? What would I do? Who is the first person I would call? What is step 1 and then what is step 2 after that? Watch closely what happens the moment you ask it. The storm does not disappear, but it changes its state entirely. It stops being a solid wall of black sky, and it becomes instead a list of tasks, and tasks can be done. A wall cannot be climbed, but a list can be worked, quietly, line by line by line. You have worked hard lists before. Many of them. You are honestly good at it. That competence was never taken away from you. It was only hidden, for a while, behind the size of the fear, so refuse the frozen version of yourself. Fear shrinks the instant you hand yourself something to actually do inside it. The disaster in your mind has no floor. For one reason only. Because you never once let yourself stand up in it and look around, so stand up in it now. On paper. In advance, while it is still safe, take the imagined storm apart into steps. And you will find the floor was quietly there the whole time. There is one sentence that keeps people awake at night, more than almost any other. I could not survive that. You have said it, quietly, about something, a particular loss, a particular ending you cannot bear to picture directly. You have drawn a hard line in your own mind and told yourself the truth stops right there. That just beyond it lies a version of pain you will simply never come back from. But look carefully at how you reach that verdict. You are judging a future storm, using the strength of the person you happen to be on a calm, ordinary day. The you who is comfortable right now, the you who has slept and eaten and is not currently standing out in any weather at all. Of course, that version feels far too small for it. Of course it does. But here is the thing you keep missing. That comfortable version was never the one who was going to have to face it. Because something happens to a person inside a real crisis. A different self quietly steps forward. Slower, lower, stranger, steadier than you would ever guess. You have actually met this self before, on your own worst days. The one who somehow made the calls, handled the details, said the right thing to someone else, while the ground was still moving under both of you. Did you plan that? No, you did not summon it on purpose. It simply arrived on time. It always arrives, exactly when the weather does. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind adapts and turns each obstacle to its own uses. That what stands in the way can become the way. He was not being poetic or soft. He was describing this precise thing, the capacity you genuinely cannot feel in advance, because it is only ever issued to you at the exact moment you actually need to use it. You cannot pre-feel your own courage from the calm. You can only watch afterward a little stunned as it shows up right on time. So the next time your mind insists you could not survive it, answer it back precisely. You are right. That today's rested, comfortable me could not carry that. That much is true, but that is not the one who would ever meet it. The one who meets it has met every storm so far, and has not even once, failed to show up for you. So stop handing the calm version the weather. Carrying storms was never that version's job. Notice one last habit, and it may be the sneakiest one of all. You forecast the storms, but you never once forecast the clearing. Your mind is endlessly willing to predict the black sky rolling in. It will not ever predict the light that comes afterward. And yet, think about it. Every single storm you have ever been caught inside has also, without one exception, ended. Sit for a moment with how total that record really is. Every grief you have carried has slowly changed its weight over time. Every panic you have felt has, in the end, burned itself out. Every sleepless, certain this is truly the end night, was followed, eventually, by a plain ordinary morning, where you got up and made coffee and somehow kept going. You do not fear those endings because they never came. You fear them, and then forget, every single time, that they always end. So why does your private forecast only ever include the dark half? Because fear is loud, and relief is almost silent. The storm announces itself from a mile off. The clearing slips in without a single sound. While you are already busy bracing hard for the next front on the horizon, relief does not knock on your door. It just gradually becomes the weather again. Until one quiet day you glance up and notice the sky has been open for a good while now. Now, this is not a promise that nothing hard will ever come. Hard things will come. Some of them will be real and heavy and genuinely yours to carry. The point here is smaller than a promise and far more solid. It is simply this, that you have carried the weight of endings before, more times than you remember. And the world kept turning. And every time, so did you. So change the direction you look before you sleep. Not forward, out into a storm that has not even formed yet. Backward, across a whole horizon crowded with storms you have already outlasted. Let the very last thing your mind touches at night be that long coastline of everything survived, and not the empty black of a disaster that has not even been born. You are standing on 100 quiet proofs. Turn and face the right direction, and at last, you will actually be able to see them. So here is what changes for you now. The disaster you are bracing for is not your first storm, and you are not the untested, fragile person your fear keeps swearing that you are. You have already survived versions of this exact thing, more times than you have ever bothered to count. And the stranger inside you who carries you through has never yet failed to arrive. If any part of this landed on something real, give the video a like. It genuinely helps this reach the next person who is bracing hard for a storm that already passed. Then tell me down in the comments, which disaster have you already survived that somehow, against all the evidence, still scares you? And if you want more of these quiet arguments for a steadier mind, subscribe, and stay a while.